Hello everyone, back to the YouTube Summer 2018 forecast from GasObvious.com. So, over the past 3 months, we have been doing analogues updates and seasonal model updates, building up to the summer forecast, and we have arrived now at the point where we can do no more updates. All we can do is bring everything together and give you our best shot at what we think is going to happen for the summer of 2018 for the UK. So that's what we're going to be doing for this video. The first video on this Sunday morning will be the summer 2018 forecast. We are going to start off with a little bit more analogues wise because we're going to have a bit of a look at May. It's always very tricky when we get to the forecast at the end of the final month of the 3-monthly season. Because it's always nice to be able to bring in that last month, if you like. But it's always very tricky because we aren't actually at month's end now. So I'm doing this on the 26th of May. So it's always tricky to factor in the final month. But luckily this May has been a very warm and pretty dry May. So that does help us by just having a look at a few summers that occurred after warm and dry May. So that's what we're going to be starting off with. Before we get on to the actual forecast itself, we will have a look at May 2018, as we would always do. We will always attempt, if we can, to have a look at that final month of the season before we release the forecast. So we'll start with that, and then we'll move on to the actual forecast itself. Just to say, it could be quite a long video, so you can't watch it all in one go. It will be placed on the summer, what is now the summer forecast page, later on today, and there'll be a written summary that goes with it as well. Big thank you to James Ackrill for providing us with all of the information in terms of the analogues, not just in the forecast video, but also throughout the whole of the season. But I'll do the thank yous and the acknowledgements, I think, at the end of the forecast. Just to say that the GasObvious Sunday Roundup will be released later on today, and then this afternoon, as we are ending the summer updates, it'll be time for the long-range bandwagon to roll on again. And so the next season we'll be rolling on to will be autumn. And in way of just getting you a little bit set up for that, we're going to have a quick sneak peek at the autumn of 2018 later on this afternoon. So a lot going on at the website today on this bank holiday Sunday. So we'll begin by having a look at May. So May central England temperature is currently standing at a very warm 12.6. That's provisional to the 25th of May. So we stand provisionally at 12.6. An anomaly of 1.7 degrees, nearly 2 degrees above average. It's going to go up more over the next few days. So I reckon there's a good chance we're going to finish up above, at or above 13 degrees Celsius for this May when we come to factor in the month as a whole. I think it will tick up just about enough to get to 13.0. So it is going to be a very warm May indeed, I think, once we come to the end of the month. Also being really dry this May as well. So our analogues guru James has been having a look at warm and dry Mays and the summers that follow them. So we begin by having a look at warm and dry Mays with central England temperatures of 12.0 degrees or above and less than 45 millimetres of rain for England and Wales through those Mays. And that gives us the Mays of 1895, 1911, 1919, 1922, 1940, 1959, 1970, 1989, 1990, 1998, and coming down here, the final May is that of 2001. So those are the Mays that reach the sort of requirement that we're looking at here with CETs above 12 degrees and less than 45 millimetres total for those Mays. This is how the Junes look that follow those Mays reanalyzed. So we find that we have a strong signal for the dunes, have above average heights over Scandinavia and also out into the Atlantic. with, let's change the colour, below average heights around Greenland and Iceland, and same with jet stream through rather like that. So a little bit mixed for these Junes following the warm and dry Mays. We go through to the Julys though, and it looks a lot worse. So the Julys look like they turn on average, when you combine all of these years that have these warm and dry Mays, it looks like the Julys turn very unsettled indeed, with a deep trough of below average heights right over top of the country, and the above average heights in the Atlantic and going up to Greenland. That sends the jet stream off like that. So really quite a cool and unsettled signal for the Julys. And then we go through to the August, and things do get a bit better actually in the August. After a midsummer wobble, it looks like we tend to raise the heights a little bit to our south and get the below average heights pushed a bit further north. That sends the jet stream north as well, so probably going to the warm side of the jet stream. So those Augusts could be a little bit warmer and drier, particularly in comparison to the Julys. So quite a changeable sort of pattern of the summer, but not a total disaster. There are some decent summers and some decent months in there that we see. And August, I think, is the one that does look reasonably nice, but also June isn't too bad either. Combining all of the months together, this is how the summers themselves look when we have Mays with central temperatures of 12 degrees or more and less than 45 millimetres of rain. We find that the summers themselves are a little bit unset. We do have an area below average heights to the north of Scotland and above average heights out in the Atlantic, and so that sends jet stream like that. But bear in mind, it's a changeable summer pattern, so each individual summer month has a distinct and different pattern, and overall July is the worst, but June and particularly August does have something to work with. Now, if we narrow this down a bit more, let's have a look at Mays that have CETs of 12 degrees or more, but with less than 30 millimetres of rain. So these are the really dry Mays and also warm Mays as well. So these are really dry and warm Mays indeed. And then we see, narrowing it down a little bit, we come out with these years, 1895, 1919, 1959, 1970, 1989, and 1990. So we start getting some much better years, some much better summers appearing when we narrow it down. So this is how the Junes look with these very dry and warm Mays. We find that the Junes have a stronger signal for having above average heights over Scandinavia, so quite a strong signal for a Scandi high, and also the Azores ridging to it with the below average heights, the low pressure penned in towards Greenland and Iceland, and so we do something like that for flowing with the jet stream. Those are potentially very nice Junes indeed. The Julys tend to look like that, so following these very dry and warm Mays, we tend to get below average heights generally to our east and above average heights to the west. So it's not a particularly wet signal, but it is a little bit cooler there. That's a cooler signal for July compared to what we have in June. But do bear in mind, there are some really good Julys in there. We've got 1959, we've got 1989, and 1990 wasn't too shabby in July either. And then we go through to August, and August looks very similar with the previous August that we was just looking at, when it was May CTs of 12 degrees or more and 45 millimetres of rain during those Mays. And this now sort of 30 millimetres of rain with May CTs of 12 degrees looks like this for the August. And again, same idea, we get the below average heights to the north, but the jet stream looks like it's pushing north as well, with the above average heights very weakly anyway to our south. So that looks like we have something to work with in the August. Again, overall, this is very similar to the April data that we've been going through over the past analogues updates. It does look as though these 2 months, April and May, have generally shifted the goalpost a little bit from what was looking like earlier in the season. It was looking like this summer could be a very, very bad summer indeed. But the Aprils and the Mays patterns have shifted the goalpost much more towards at least the chance of a good summer. And so that's caused problems for me, actually, because I thought it was going to be a straightforward forecast about 6 weeks ago. I thought it was going to be very straightforward. I was just going to be sitting here and telling you that you're going to have to get your waterproofs ready, and we're just going to be in for a really bad summer. But things have shifted during April and May, and so it looks like the evidence is stacking up that we might have a rather better summer. We'll get on to that, though, when we come to do the summer forecast. If we put all of these months together, we combine all the months together, these are how the summers themselves look reanalysed when we have these very dry and also warm Mays. We find it's not a bad signal at all. We've got the Azores high out to the west. We've also got a bit of a ridge over Scandinavia. Low pressure is up there, but I think overall the jet stream is more or less to our north. So we're on the warm side of the jet stream with a lot of these summers. Bear in mind that is primarily down to the June pattern, of course, which is a really good pattern for June. But I don't think that's too shabby an anomaly at all that we see there. Now, one other thing we can look at is the overall May pattern that we've had. So this is how May 2018 looks reanalysed. This is the reanalysis for May 2018 from the first day of the month through to the 25th of the month, just before we're recording the video. You can see that it has had a strong ridge over Scandinavia, not surprising with that, and then the ridge going into the UK and also into the Atlantic as well. The jet stream is up there in what is to the north of the country. So we've been on the warm side of the jet this May, and we've been under a strong ridge of high pressure from the Azores to Scandinavia. So it's not surprising it's been such a warm and dry month. Now, James Ackrill, our analogues guru, has been trawling through the reanalysis going all the way back to the 1850s to try and come up with the years that have the best overall pattern match in terms of the 500 millibar height anomaly to May 2018 so far, and I wouldn't expect the anomaly for May 2018 to change much from what it's currently showing. So these are the years that James come up with that are the closest matches in terms of the 500 millibar height anomaly for May 2018. We've got 1895, we've got 1905, we've got 1911, we've got 1918, we've got 1934, we've got 1936, we've got 1939, 1943, 1966, 1970, let's carry on scrolling down, and also 1989. Keep 1989 at the back of your mind, because that's an important year, I think, for these updates. So those are the Mays that have the closest pattern to May 2018 so far, up to the 26th. This is how the Junes look that follow those Mays. So again, very similar to what I just looked at. For the Junes, we get this strong ridge over Scandinavia, and we've got the below average heights away to our south down here, and it means that we're pulling in very warm air from the east and from the southeast as well. The Julys look like that, so we're back to the idea that we have through the earlier part of the updates, which is a front-loaded summer. So for the Julys, we tend to get this ridge building up to the north, to the northwest of us, with the below-average heights over to the south of us, and so that does place us on the cool side of the jet stream. We have got a southerly tracking jet stream coming through there. Pretty poor pattern for July. And it gets worse for August with these years as well. So for the August, we find that we set up this blocking feature close to Greenland with the below average heights parked underneath it, jet streams down there. That's a very bad signal for the August. So after the really good start to the summer in June, it all goes horribly wrong through July and August. And then this is how we come away with the actual summer reanalysis. So it does have a signal for blocking to be to our north, below average heights to be to our south, and we're on the cool side of the jet stream as well. Not a very good pattern overall. Bear in mind, it does contain, these years do on average contain a nice pattern for the Junes, but then a real deterioration for the Julys and the Augusts. Now, what we can say, however, is that although those Mays are the closest 500 millibar pattern match to May 2018, they don't take into account whether those Mays were also dry and warm. So we can narrow this down a bit by having a look at not only the pattern, but also whether they were warm and dry Mays as well. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to kind of narrow the field down a lot more. So now we're just down to 3 Mays. We're down to May 1895, May 1917, and May 1989. That year again. And look what we come out with. We come out still with the same signal for the Junes, with the above average heights to be close to the UK and over Scandinavia. So a really good signal for the Junes. You would expect a lot of warm and dry weather in the Junes, but the Julys look like that. Still rather cool, still rather changeable, but nowhere near as bad as the Julys that we just looked at when we didn't narrow the field down by deciding whether these were also warm and dry Mays, as well as having a similar pattern to May 2018. So for the Julys, you get this trough over Scandinavia out of these 3 years, and the ridges out in the Atlantic, and that sends the jet stream through like that. Bear in mind, we have got 1989 in there, which was a very, very good July indeed. And then the Augusts look like that, and again, only 3 years, narrowing this down much more. In the August, we've got the below average heights out to the west. We do have a bit of a blocking signal up to the north, but we also have some above average heights to our south. And so this is an interesting pattern, because it could be really quite warm, but also unsettled, unstable, maybe very thundery with the flow and the jet going rather like that in the August. So we still have that broad idea that June is the best month overall for settled and warm and dry weather. July and August look much more changeable, but nowhere near as bad with these Julys and Augusts when we narrow the field down and include not only the pattern, but also whether they're warm and dry Mays as well. If we bring it all together, this is what we see for these 3 summers, 1895, 1970, 1989. And again, it's not too bad, really. We've got the above average heights close to the UK and also over Scandinavia. The jet stream would seemingly be up there. Do bear in mind, a lot of that, again, is down to the signal for June, which is a classic anticyclonic high-pressure dominated signal in the Junes before there is a deterioration in the Julys and in the August too. So that's all of the May data, and at this point we can't really look at any more analogues. So we've exhausted all of the analogues that we can look at, and now it's time to start bringing it all together. But I'm just going to pause the video there for a moment, Garth, and have a drink of water. Why don't you go and get yourself a cup of tea and a biscuit, because now, or when we come back and I start video again, we will bring it all together, and you can see the table there. I'm going to talk you through it. We've got a series of tables that we're going to go through, and then you'll see the actual analogues for this summer once we narrow everything down. So go and get yourself a cup of tea. I'm going to get myself a drink of water. We'll meet back here in 2 minutes' time. And then we will crack on, we'll get on with the summer 2018 forecast. So see you in a second. Okay, we're back and we're ready to resume the GazWeathers.com summer 2018 forecast. I'm just check to make sure that we're recording. Yes, we are. So the first part of the video, we was focusing on the May pattern that we've just had, and also warm and dry Mays, and the signals look a little bit mixed, but overall not too bad. Very similar to the August data that the April data, I should say, that we looked at in earlier analogues updates, which is kind of pushing us a little bit more towards the warmer side of things for this summer. As I said, around 6 weeks or so ago, I was convinced this was going to be a really bad summer, and I'll be sitting here telling you that we're going to be in for a disaster of a summer. But things have altered a little bit with the April and May information that we've been going through. So now, anyway, it is time to bring it all together. So this is a bit I always feel bad about for James, because James spends so long working on these wonderful tables that really show you everything that we've been talking about through the updates. We've done 3 months worth of updates, and here we are. We have a table that brings it all together and shows you clearly which years are the most favoured in terms of the things we've been looking at, and in terms of being closest to 2018, and which are the years that we can kind of discard because they don't have too many connections, if you like, to 2018. James spent so long bringing these tables together, and I can only feature them in the videos for a few moments. But I will go through as much as I can. We have got more tables to get through, though, before we get to our summer 2018 analogues. So, I'll talk you through the table. It really is quite amazing how James does this. So let's just get the highlighter going. The first thing to say is that these are all of the years, or all of the sort of summers, if you like, starting from 1850 at the top. They have featured the year or summer of 1850 in our analogues, and going all the way down the bottom of the screen. We only go down to 1889, so we can come down further and we get to not 1890 just there, and we carry on down to 1929, and we have to go down even further, and we go down to 1930 to 1969 in that part of the table. Just going to show you how many years have been featuring in our analogues updates this year. We've got 1970, and we go from there down to 2009, and then finally we arrive down here from 2010 down to last year, 2017. So a lot of years have featured in our analogues updates this year, because most of those years are not going to be relevant, or not going to be all that relevant to 2018. So most of these years we can discard, and that's always the bit I feel bad about for James, because he has to go through all of those years, bring all of it together, and then most of the years that you see there can actually be thrown away because they aren't all that relevant to 2018. But we still have to go through the process to find out which are the most relevant years to 2018. So what I've got up here is all the things we've been looking at. So for example, we've got ENSO, there in that blue column, and looking at La Nina to ENSO neutral summers. Just here we've got the solar stuff. So we've got the summers that are second and first nearest to solar minimum. That's where we are in the current solar cycle, of course. Just here we've got the QBO, the easterly QBO, going on through the summer, and in some cases transitioning from easterly to westerly QBOs. The reason you've got these black stars here is that the QBO data only begins from the early 1950s. So all of these years back in the 1800s, they would have had QBOs going on, but nobody knew anything about the QBO at that time. So we can't say what the QBO was doing in any of these years back into the 1800s. Then in this column just here, we've got cold Februaries, because we started off very early in the updates. We was looking at summers that follow cold February, because we did have that cold February with CETs between 2.5 and 3.3. We also looked at January CETs around 5.3, combined with February CETs of 2.5. In this column, we've got the January as the warmest month. We've got January as the warmest month of the winter. Because that's what happened, or in the first quarter, I should say, because that's what happened in the first quarter of 2018. Over here, we've got spring factors. So we've got Greenland highs in March, because we did have a big blocking feature in March, also with CETs between 4.4 and 5.4. We've got wet Marches just here. It's a job to remember now, with all this warm and dry weather, that back in March was a pretty wet month, as well as being quite cold. We've also got best matches, pattern matches, in terms of 500 millibar heights for March. And at this point, with most of this data, kind of like the ENSO stuff, the solar stuff, cold Februaries following on from January being the warmest month, and also the cold and wet Marches. At that point, early in the analogues updates, it really did look as though this summer was going to be a poor summer. But then we get to this part of the table just here, and this is where it starts to change a little bit. So we've got the warm Aprils with CETs between 9 and 10.3, and also wet Aprils as well, and also the April pattern matches. And then just here we come to the warm Mays, the data we've just been looking at, the warm Mays, the May CETs, and also the dry Mays as well, and the May patterns. So what you see here is that many of these years have got kind of like colour boxes going on. So, for example, let's talk you through one of the years. So, for example, this top year just here, which, if I look at the screen close enough, I think it's 1853. So, most of these columns for 1853 are blank, which means they are not relevant to the situation in 2018 for these individual factors. So they're not relevant for ENSO, they're not relevant for the solar stuff, they're not relevant for QBO. Well, it might be relevant for QBO, but we don't know what the QBO was doing in this year. Not relevant for cold Februaries, not relevant for Januaries, but they are relevant, or it is relevant for January being the warmest month of the first quarter. And then carrying on, not relevant for Greenland highs in March, not relevant for being particularly wet March either, not relevant there, not relevant there, not relevant there, not relevant there, and so on we go through to the end of the table over here. So that's not a particularly good match for 2018. Let's see if we can find a better match. And a better match would be 1870 this year just here. So 1870 connects to 2018 in terms of La Nina to ENSO neutral. It connects in terms of the cold February. It connects to having a Greenland high in March with the CET around the same CET as we had 2018 as well. It connects in terms of the best pattern match for March as well. It also connects for then having a warm April, so that's interesting too. And then as we come over into the May column, the year of 1870 also has connections to 2018 in terms of the warm May with a CET between 11.7 and 11.9. It also connects for this year just here, the May CET more than 1 degree Celsius, and it connects for having a dry May as well. So overall, 1870 comes out as a fairly decent match, really. With on our score, we score it as 5.5. So the higher the score, the closer the match to 2018, if you like. So where we've got, and this is the final column to look at on this table, where we've got this one just here, 1873, that only has a score of 1. So we can pretty much put that one in the bin. It's not really relevant to 2018. 1877 only has a score of 2. So again, we can throw that one in the bin. 1895 only has a score of 0. So that one can definitely go in the bin. 1887 just has a score of 1. That can go in the bin as well. So what we're interested in specifically are the years that have scores of 4 or more. That's kind of like the minimum requirement to be relevant for an analogue, to become an analogue for this summer. It has to have a score of 4 or more. So that's when we move on to our next table. So if we narrow it down some more, these are the years, and you see we've cut a lot of the years out now. So these are the years that are having scores of 4 or more on the previous table. So the years that we think are most relevant are 1862, 1867, 1870, 1881, 1889, 1895, 1896, 1912, 1919, 1922, 1932, 1937, 1947, 1952, 1959, 1970, 1989, 1996, 1998, 2001, that's an interesting year, 2006 and 2008 as well. Those are the years that are most relevant for 2018 in terms of all of the things that we'd be looking at through these updates. So let's go over here and see which come out with the highest scores. So remember, all these have got a score of 4 or more. So 1862, for example, comes out with a score of 4. 1870 comes out, we know that, with a score of 5.5. Going even to higher scores, though, we find that 1889 comes out with a score of 6.5. 1922 comes out with a score of 5.5. 1952, and I'm concentrating now, you'll notice, on the years that come out with scores of 5 or more. So we're narrowing this down as well. We're starting to not think as much about the years that have scores of 4. We're now looking at years that have scores of 5. So these really strongly connect to 2018. So 1952 is the next one with scores of 5. 1959 comes out with a score of 5.5. That's very relevant to 2018. 1970 comes out with a score of 5. 1989, look at that. It comes out with a score of 7.5. Hope you can see that. Very, very relevant. 1989. I tried to keep it at the back of your mind. Very, very relevant indeed to this year, to 2018. 1996 and 1998 are tied at 5.25. So they're pretty decent matches as well. We've got 2006 and 2008, but I think we can discard really because they come out with 4 and 4.5 respectively. The best match, however, for everything that we've looked at, for Gadsworthy's methodology, if you like, the best match comes out as 2001. The year of 2001 is the best analogue we have found for our methodology for the summer of 2018 with a score of 8.5. So this is how those years looked. They're ranked by score. So this is how the summers look. So what we've got just here, I'll just talk you through this table. This is the last table, by the way, and then we'll get on to the actual analogues for this summer. The last table shows that we've got our years just there, our total scores just there. There's 2001 coming out on top at 8.5, and then this is how the temperatures and precipitations of these summers of these years look. So we've got the June CTs just there, the July CTs are just there, the August CTs are just there, and then precipitation, we've got the June England and Wales precipitation there, the July England and Wales precipitation just there, the August England and Wales precipitation just there, and you can see from the colours whether they were warm or cool months. So we'll go down to the bottom. These are kind of like the least relevant then. So we've got 2006 and 1947, 1937, 1932, 1919, 1912, 1895, 1864, 1862, 1952 coming out with scores of 4. So we can basically remove those from the analogues. So we are interested in the years that have scores of 5 or more to narrow this down to the absolute best matches to 2018 in terms of because of its methodology. And that brings us out to 1970, 1952, 1998, 1996, 1959, 1922, 1870, 1889, 1989 and 2001. The top 3 are those 3 just there, 1889, 1989, and number 1 in pole position is the year of 2001. This is how the summer CETs of those years look. So we've got a bit of a mixed bag for the June column, but generally most of these Junes are coming out either average or a little bit warmer than average, or in the case of 1970, substantially warmer than average. There's only one, 1922, that's particularly cool at 13.8. Otherwise, most of them are coming out with CETs in the 14s or 15s, so the Junes are looking quite good. For the Julys, we see that, again, bit of a mixed bag. Down here, some of these Julys down here are quite cool. So I've got 1922, which is very poor, 1998 and 1970, which aren't that good. But going further up, we see that the top 3 do come out a little bit better, or the top 4. So we've got 1870 at 17.5, got 1989 at 18.2, and 2001 at 17.2. We do have 1889, however, which is a cool one. Overall, though, it looks like the most the best matches, if you like, to 2018. Most of them do have reasonable sort of looking Julys. And then if we have a look at the August column for temperature, we see that again, a bit of a mixed bag. August 2001 was quite a warm month. That was a pretty decent summer. It was a warmish summer, but fairly unsettled. 1989 and 1889, a little bit cooler, but I mean not too bad overall, really, for August 1989. And then coming down here, well, that's a very bad one in 1922. The summer of 1922 was really bad. It is alarming to see it quite high up in our score. But nevertheless, many of these summers are not overly cold, you would have to say. In terms of the precipitation column, then, we find that many of the Junes, look at this, most of the Junes are coming out quite dry. We do have that very wet one in 1998, but otherwise, many of the Junes are being favoured to be fairly dry, or even very dry. The Julys are a little bit more of a mixed bag, but overall, except for, again, that very wet July in 1922, and also 1889 sticks out a little bit, a lot of these Julys are coming out average to a little bit drier than average. And then finally for the August, well, then we do have a real mixed bag, so it's a mix in the August column of sort of dry August, just there, a very dry one in 1959, of course, but also wet August. So 2001, for example, was quite wet in the August, and 1889 was quite wet as well. 1922 was very wet. 1996 was rather mixed, and 1952 was a wet August. 1881 was an incredibly wet August as well. So it is a mixed bag, but I think overall we can see that June is still, I mean, this has been the idea that's been at work throughout, really, throughout the analogues updates. June is still kind of there, favouring to be quite a decent month. But then we get through to July and August, it does become a little bit more of a mixed bag in July and August. Let's have a look then at the analogues for the summer of 2018. We've managed, well, show you how we've narrowed it down via the tables, and now it's time to have a look at the analogues for the summer of 2018. So these are the years that we we're interested in scoring highest on our methodology. We've got 1870, we've got 1889, we've got 1922, we've got 1952, we've got 1959, we've got 1970, we've got 1989, excuse me, we've got 1996, we've got 1998, and then the final year is 2001. And we know that's the best year, scoring highest on our methodology. So if we bring all of those years together, this is how the dunes look. And they tend to have above average heights close to the UK from the Azores up to Scandinavia. Very, very similar to the May pattern that we have just experienced. With the below average heights up to the northwest, the jet stream is up there. They look like they're pretty good dunes, I have to say. What about the Julys? This is how the Julys of these years look, and they are more unsettled, with the above average heights out to the west of the country and the below average heights over to the east. And so we do that with the flow, with the jet stream overall favoured to be a little bit cooler and a little bit more unsettled as well. And then the August look like that. This is how the August look with our highest scorers for the analogues. We find that we have the below average heights over the UK and Western Europe too, and the jet stream is doing something like that. So again, it's still that similar. It's uncanny how this keeps showing up, with June to be the best month, then the deterioration in the Julys and the August. Combining all of the months together, this is how the summers themselves look. Overall, we get below average heights to our northeast, with above average heights out in the Atlantic. The flow and the jet is going something like that. But finally, let's just narrow it down a little bit more and look at those top three. So these are the top three scorers for our methodology. We've got 1989, we've got 1889, I should say. We've got 1989, 100 years later, and we've got 2001. Those are the top three, with 2001, I say, taking first place, being the closest match to 2018 in terms of the Gazov's methodology. This is how the dunes of those top three summers look, with the above average heights over and to the east and northeast country, below average heights up there. The flow and the jet is going something like that. The Julys look like that. We get the area of above average heights out to our west with our summer analogues, and the below average heights are to the east. The flow and the jet is doing something like that. Still more or less on the warm side of the jet for these August. That is by no means, for these Julys I should say, but it's by no means a disaster of the pattern for the Julys. The Augusts do look rather dodgy though. We've got the below average heights deepening to the north. However, we do still have above average heights to our south and southwest, and so although the jet stream is coming further southwards, it's in that sort of position, and I reckon that's reasonably warm, but also potentially rather more unsettled for the August. And in terms of the three summers combined, this is how they look, with the below average heights over the UK and a lot of above average heights down to the south through the Atlantic into the Mediterranean, and also through the Central Atlantic going up towards Greenland. And so the flow and the jet is rather like that. It's a strange looking pattern really overall for those summers. There's just one last thing I want to talk about for these top three summers, and that's solar activity. So we know that 2001 is the closest match on the Gazov's methodology for the summer of 2018. The one problem, and the one issue I have with it, is that 2001 is very close to the solar maximum of solar cycle number 23. It was a strong solar maximum as well. We know that at the moment we are close to solar minimum, if not at solar minimum. So from a solar perspective, 2001 doesn't fit all that well with 2018, and the same is true really for 1989, because again, although that scores very, very highly on the Gauss-Lorentz methodology, it was again very close to the solar maximum of solar cycle number 22. I think the solar maximum of solar cycle 22 occurred in 1990. So those two summers are occurring very close to their respective solar maximums. The one summer that is close to solar minimum and is also scoring very highly is 1889. So from a solar perspective, I think 1889 is the closest match. But of course, we know on the overall methodology that 1998 and particularly 2001 come out on top. So it does leave me with a few problems, this. Let's deal with what I think we do know, and that is that on the Gauss-Lorentz methodology, June is looking like a really very good summer month indeed. So if you want a decent summer month, all hopes really are pinned, and all expectations, I guess, are pinned on June. I would suspect June will be significantly warmer than average, could possibly be quite a dry month again as well. So June could be a really very pleasant summer month indeed, getting the summer of 2018 off to a really good start. And then we get to July and to August as well, and things do become more complicated there. We've got the suggestion, I think, is still there of a deteriorating pattern. So I think we do have to predict, we do have to expect that after the really, what could be a really good June, we likely go into a more unsettled pattern through July and August. But the question is, how bad does it get? How unsettled does it get? And I'm not terribly convinced that it is going to be a really bad period. I think it will deteriorate from June, but I think there will still be regular warmer and drier intervals. So overall, I'm going to predict that we have a warmer than average summer. I don't think we'll have a very hot summer. It may start off very hot, but I don't think we'll sustain that continuous heat. So I don't think it will be a classic summer. Famous last words, I know, but I think that after the very hot start for summer, we will probably get a deterioration as we go along, and so that will stop us from having a hot summer. But even so, even with this deterioration, I think we are likely to have warmer and drier conditions as well. So I wouldn't be all that surprised if both July and August came out warmer than average. So the full 3 summer months could come out warmer than average. And in terms of precipitation, that's very difficult to predict because it does look as though it's turning more unsettled. We have a dry start to the summer, I would have thought, in June. But it does look as though the precipitation increases as we go through July and August. But there again, I don't think it will be a tremendously wet sort of second half to summer. I think there will be more unsettled conditions through the second half of summer, particularly July to August. Could be quite an unsettled period. But I think there will still be periods of drier and warmer weather, and it could all be very unstable if it does warm up during this mid to second half of summer period. It could be very unstable and quickly trigger sort of thunderstorms. So a lot of regional variation is possible for this summer, but I think overall precipitation probably doesn't come out all that far from the average. It may be a bit wetter up in the north, but down in the south, I would have thought it is likely to be close to average with precipitation. But I think the main thing is that the temperature is going to be pretty warm this summer. We start off very warm, and whilst we do see evidence of a deterioration through July and August, probably, hopefully, anyway, fingers crossed, it won't get that bad, and so we come away with a warmer than average summer, maybe by as much as a degree or so above average. So that is the GaussWebMeets.com summer 2018 forecast. We're going for a warmer than average summer, starting off very warm with a really nice June, and then deteriorating somewhat but not deteriorating into a complete disaster of the summer. Hopefully there will still be enough warmer and drier interludes, albeit within an unsettled or a more unsettled pattern through July and through August as well. And that's it. That's as much as I can do for you. So I hope you found the video interesting and informative. Gone on longer than I expected, but there's so much to talk about. I did want to focus on those tables quite a bit because I know James does put so much effort into getting those tables together and bringing it all together. So I did want to focus on that quite a bit. So not a bad summer overall. I think probably most of you will be pleasantly surprised. Not as bad as I'm sure a lot of you were, and including myself, not as bad as we were anticipating around 6 weeks ago. Still the idea is there of a deteriorating summer, but hopefully the mid and second half of the summer will have enough warmer and drier periods to at least make things relatively pleasant going through to the second half of the summer. And at 50 minutes, I think that pretty much rounds it all up. So we'll see how the forecast does. We don't change anything once we issue the forecast. This will be because of this summer 2018 forecast. However it pans out, even if it goes down the tubes within the first fortnight of June, we will continue to have this as our summer forecast. And we'll just come back at the beginning of September and we'll reevaluate it and see how we did. If it does go wrong, we'll try maybe and discuss some of the reasons why it might have gone wrong. And as ever, any forecast beyond 5 days comes with a huge health warning. So this is all the caveats. Any forecast beyond 5 days comes with a very large health warning. You do have to be really careful with all long-range forecasts and just treat them as a bit of fun. Big thank you to James Ackrill, not just for his efforts through the summer forecast, but also for his efforts throughout the whole of this season of updates. I want to say thank you to Terry Scully as well. Terry released his summer forecast a few days ago, and I have factored in what Terry was suggesting in his forecast as well. So thank you to Terry for his help, advice and input. The season models, I haven't mentioned those, but season models have formed part of the view here, particularly in terms of continuing to suggest the possibility of warmer conditions in the second half of the summer, that the deterioration after June might not be all that bad. So big thank you to those forecast centres for allowing us to use their data. And at 52 minutes, that rounds it all up. So thanks so much for sticking with this with this season of updates. That's a Gazzo summer forecast. This afternoon, the long-range bandwagon will begin to move on, and we head off towards autumn updates. So there'll be a sneak peek for the autumn of 2018 coming up with you this afternoon. Between now and then, we've got the Gazzo Sunday Roundup, and this video, of course, is summer forecast, will be placed on the gazzoviz.com summer forecast page with a written summary that goes with it as well, and you'll be able to see that sometime this evening. And at almost 53 minutes, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.